Here we go again. Well, here we are. It is Monday, 13th of July, and school gets out next Wednesday, the 22nd. So we're down to the last week and a half. And for this entire week, we're going to be doing the history, as much cinema, that's a fancy French word for movies for you guys, as we possibly can. Um, just a quick, some updates. I graded all your essays 1, 2, and 3. I'm working on 4. Just started them last night on the musicians, Mozart and Beethoven. Some of you are doing a good job. I wish the ones that are only handing in less than 3 pages follow the instructions. You don't want to lose points because you're short, and you do lose points for being short. These people I have you write about, thousands of pages have been written about them. Surely you can write 3. That's the assignment anyway. Write more. Some of you write longer papers. And plus, make sure it's based on the documentary I have you guys watch, not research off Wikipedia or some other source. And usually, I've told you this before, I could tell that you haven't seen the documentary, because it's more of a cut and paste job about when they were born, when they died, who they were married to. That's all. That's just what I call thumbnail bio info that can be easily picked off the web. But if you watch the documentary that I assign, you might find something deeper and more. The ideas might be fresher into the insights of who these people are. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at trying to find out how many symphonies Beethoven made or how many marriages he had. I'm trying to look for what made him tick. What made Mozart tick? What makes those artists, the Dutch painters, why were they doing what they were doing? No one else is doing it. And how come 400 or 500 years later, we're still looking at their work? That's the key thing. I'll keep asking you, look for why. What makes Mozart special besides him writing symphonies when he's 5 years old? That makes him very special. Anyway, this week we're doing cinema. And I usually teach the cinema classes at Shasta College the last 5 years. Movies have always been my passion. I've been studying it since, voluntarily, by the way, since I was literally a child. And my mother started taking me into movies when I was 5 or 6 years old. And not to children's movies. We saw all sorts of what you would call mature movies for adults that most kids, I'm not saying I understood them, but she got me started early. I blame her for everything. I'm sure she regrets it. She's no longer with us, but she kind of created a monster, because I've been studying and researching and obsessed with film all of my life. And I wanted to be a director. I didn't even know what a director was, but it looked like a cool job to have. And I just kept researching and learning and learning. And in those days, there was no streaming movies. There was no renting movies. You had to actually go to the movie theater. And I went to the movies every single Saturday, probably for the first 20 years of my life. We had a theater downtown, and the movie changed once a week. It would be a double feature, and I would watch what they call a B movie and then the A movie, and there'd usually be a cartoon in between, Roadrunner or Mr. Magoo, somebody. And that's how I grew up. I could not wait to go to the sanctuary of a cool movie theater. When I mean cool, I'm talking about temperature-wise too, because when you're raised in a hot environment, it's nice to be in an air-conditioned theater. Watching a film, what could be better than that? And in those days, you paid one fee, whatever it was, $1.50, $1.25, and you can watch both movies, and you can watch them as many times as you want in one day. And so sometimes I'd go to the movie theater at 12 noon, and I wouldn't leave until 11 o'clock at night. My parents had to drag me out of there. Why? Well, I've written about it. I've written novels and plays and other films addressing that. I found some sort of safe haven, sanctuary. Um, it was as close as I've ever come to religion, um, was cinema and and filmmakers and actors and screenwriters. And later on, as I got better at it, I understood who wrote these things. I understood that the actors don't make their dialogue up, and I understood that what a director of photography was and a cinematographer was, the guys behind the camera and lighting everything, and what a director does. Who knew what it was? This is long before there was books on the subject or 100 documentaries like there is now all over the internet. Anyway, so you had to really do your research. And so this stuff has stuck with me all my life. I still believe in it. I'm mostly disappointed at what I see anymore, and I'm really not happy that all the movie theaters are closed down right now because of the pandemic, and I totally understand it. I'm looking forward to getting back in the movie theater because I do like the experience of going to the movies and seeing it on the big screen. I think it helps. Every year, I try to take in a couple of films that are really popular because I'm not in love with the popular films anymore because they've kind of passed me by. I don't care about superheroes. I don't care about guys beating each other up and punching each other like they do in the X-Men or the Hulk or whatever. It seems cartoon. Well, it is cartoons based on comic books. I'm a little too old for comic books. But every once in a while, a good one sneaks through. 2 years ago, I was in Portland. I went to one called, it was a sequel to Mad Max, Fury Road. Maybe you've seen it. And I went on a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. Usually I go at odd hours when I think everybody's at home in their jammies. And the place was packed. And it really upset me. I almost got my money back because I don't like sitting around. I'm not a real people person. And especially people eating popcorn on their cell phones. They're all around me. And they were young folks. I was probably the oldest guy in there. Anyway, the moment the movie started, everybody was captivated. I don't know if you saw the movie, Fury Road, Mad Max. It's an excellent action film. Done really, they did a really great job. Very few computer-generated effects, which I don't like because it's too easy and it looks phony to me. Like examples, you know what I'm talking about. Lord of the Rings, all that stuff is all computer-generated action. They used real stuntmen. They used real action. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And the stunts are incredible. Done by the Cirque du Soleil people. Maybe you've heard of them. And they're incredible what they could do. And so George Miller, who directed it, said, I want this to look as real as possible. And so I don't know what your opinion of it is. Maybe you've seen it. Hopefully you have. If not, check it out. I got to see it in the big screen movie theater. And seeing it on the TV is not near as, or I don't care how big your screen is, it's still not the ultimate experience, but that's where we are now. So I suggest if you don't even care for those kind of movies, check that out. My recommendation, you could take it to the bank. Anyway, and so every once in a while, something comes through that is in the popular culture, and I see why it is. And then the other ones, I don't see it. The Superman, X-Men, I get tired of it all. I saw the first Spider-Man. I'm not going to sit through 5 sequels of Spider-Man. It's the same story over and over and over again. I'm done with it. Anyway, too many sequels for my taste. But that's new movies. That's what's in the theaters if they ever start up again. But until then, we're streaming everything. And that's how we roll now. And we're not even going to be able to watch a movie in this class. You'll have to watch it on your own and write your paper about it. And I'll try to go easy on you. I don't want you guys having to spend money on renting a movie or anything. So I try to find something that's no charge and free. So there's limitations to that. Okay. Anyway, so the history of cinema is a complicated one. Believe it or not, cinema is over 100 years old, well over 100 years old. They started, the first movie camera was actually developed 1880s. And guess who invented the camera that we know to this day, folks? And you know who it is. It's in your book, your textbook. We're still following that. Hold on, what class is this? No, it's not in this new. This is not my film class. This is the other humanities class. I don't think they cover this in that book. So forget the book for now on. From now on, but if you just look at a light bulb above your head and think who invented the light bulb, do you know who invented the light bulb? I'm giving you a moment to come up with the name. Thomas Edison. And he also invented the movie camera. He's the godfather of movies. He started where he lived in New Jersey, in Orange, New Jersey. He made a little tiny studio called the Black Maria. If we were in class right now, I'd make you watch this documentary. If I could find it online, I might ask you to watch it anyway. I got to see if it's on there. I'm not sure. I have a copy of it, and I usually show in class. I'm taking a note to myself, see if I can see this online or not. Story film. Okay, and this early stuff is all on there. And the guy does a really good job. Story film. Okay, let me check, see if I can see that on YouTube. All right. He created a little tiny. It's only as big as an Airstream trailer. A black box, and it's on a. You can move this thing because he knew you can actually move the building. It's on a track in circle because he knew early on that you needed a lot of sunlight. This is long before we have all this tricky high-speed films. In those days, they had to flood the image with sunlight of some sort, and they didn't have a lot of light available in those days, so they used the sun. And the ceiling of the thing would open, and he'd move the building. And he made several movies in there. They're not what you would call a movie that you think is a movie, but like he did a lot of the first things. It's all on YouTube. I'll find the documentary. You guys should look at it. I'll put that on the announcements. Anyway, like the first kiss. He had this couple kissing. Yes, folks, they have their clothes on. And it was such a controversy at the time. It was, I guess you'd equate it with porn now. Of course, porn's not a big deal anymore, but it used to be at one time. When people saw that, they were outraged. The church was outraged. How dare you show this intimacy between humans? It's not meant to be shown. Keep it behind closed doors. It's just two people kissing, folks, for about 4 seconds. And but it was controversial at the time. And then later on, so Thomas Edison was a real revolution when it came to these inventions. He also invented the phonograph, folks, where you could play a record on. But that's another class. And so, in the meantime, in France, the Lumiere brothers were developing their own movie system of projection, which was a big deal, folks. This stuff had never been done before. And they figured out how to project an image. And that was huge. It revolutionized the whole film industry, made a film industry, and made an industry that didn't exist until the Lumiere brothers made it possible to project images on a screen that were huge. Never happened before. Now, there is no sound because they hadn't invented the ability to record sound yet, but they weren't silent. Most silent films have music accompaniment, and they usually had a live accompaniment at the movie theater. Sometimes it'd be a little tiny orchestra. Sometimes it's just one person on a piano or an organ. So they weren't totally silent. And even later on, when silent films became very sophisticated, 1915, 1916, movies like Birth of a Nation, a totally racist film that has not been kindly thought of over the years because of the blatant racism isn't in it. But D.W. Griffith, who directed it, revolutionized film. He, for the first time, moved the camera. He had close-ups. I never had this before. He developed a cinema language that we're still using to this day. Yes, the film is definitely racist. If you haven't seen it, maybe I'll have you watch a clip or two on YouTube. But it's essentially set in the Civil War, and when the slaves are freed, they start misbehaving, and they start supposedly raping all the white women and killing all the white guys. And who comes to save the day, folks? That's right, the KKK. The Ku Klux Klan is the hero of the piece, and they come and ride to the rescue, and they save all the white people from the evil black people. And the movie was such a hit. I believe Woodrow Wilson was in the White House. He loved this movie, and he made it required screening at the White House. It was a huge hit financially, and just to give you how popular it was, the ranks of the KKK people joined up like crazy. They went from like 40,000 people to 300,000 people in 1 year. People loved the idea of being heroes in the KKK, and they had these huge marches in Washington, D.C., proudly wearing their white wizard hats and robes, until a few African-American people started writing about the racism in the film. Now, guys, you got to remember, this is 1915. Still, Jim Crow was the law of the land. Jim Crow was a old racist time law that you could actually lynch a black person if they did something that pissed you off. Not just murder somebody. All they had to do is look at a white woman in public. You could get lynched for that, and they did. If you talk to a white woman in public, you could get lynched for it, and they did this. And then later on, they outlawed it in northern states, but in the southern states, they never got rid of Jim Crow till recently, actually. It's been outlawed for many years, but it was still on the books as being okay to lynch a black person who happened to look at a white person, supposedly a white female, and it violated their sensitivities. And so they got lynched for it. And so D.W. Griffith, over the years, kind of faded from sight because of the built-in racism. That he defended it by saying that's how he was raised. He was raised in the South, and that's how everybody behaved. He's just showing what was happening. That's legitimate. It is. He also later on did an amazing movie called Intolerance, where he tried to kind of make up for it. It's a 3-hour epic, folks. Nobody had ever made movies this long before. And Intolerance is literally the story of mankind, from cavemen to Jesus Christ's crucifixion to the Roman Empire, follow of Roman Empire. And it comes up into, I think, possibly World War I. And he was trying to make up for and showing how we need to be tolerant with other people. And it was another groundbreaking film, Intolerance. And then he kind of faded from sight over the years, and his career essentially over. But he was a revolutionary. I don't have any water. Nope. Anyway, fascinating stuff, how things were changing fast and furious. The style of acting was changing. When you watch an old silent film, the first thing you say is, why are they acting like that? Well, because they were pantomiming. They had to be expressive with their hands, their facial expressions, their bodies. It was how they got their emotions out. And so they're pantomiming their performance. That's why the acting kind of seems corny or broad. It wasn't for the day. It was totally normal because they couldn't speak their feelings. They had to show their feelings somehow. And so if they're excited, they run around If they're nervous, they act nervous, whatever that's supposed to be. If they're happy, they're really happy. Anyway, so there's an exaggeration in the form of acting. Um, Absolutely. That all changed. It got subtler as the years went on. Anyway, and then cinema became a force in nature. It moved from the East Coast, where the weather was always bad. The early movies were all mostly made in New Jersey and New York, outside in the country. The westerns even were made out there. The Great Train Robbery was made out there. That's one of the first westerns ever made. It's only 15 minutes long, maybe less, and people never saw anything like that before. Horse chasing, gunfights, trains, cowboys against other cowboys. When never seen anything like this before, it was a revolution. And all of a sudden, people wanted to see more. And so, a bunch of filmmakers from the East Coast who were sick of the weather moved out to Hollywood. That's why they moved out there to Southern California, because the weather was always nice there. And it was mostly the land was cheap, and they moved out there and started the Hollywood film business simply because of the weather. Now they could shoot all the time. They could shoot all year long, probably, without snowstorms or too much rain. And they did. And then they started putting out product and became more of a profession. But in the early days, it was not. It was essentially considered a passing fad, just like rock and roll was supposed to be a passing fad. It didn't pass, folks. It became huge and more huge than it's ever been. Maybe it's too huge now, because now sometimes these movies are averaging $200-300 million a movie, which is crazy. More special effects, more people supposedly are demanding all this stuff. And so the story's getting lost for the special effects. They had special effects in the silent era too, and they had to do it for real. They couldn't fake it with a computer thing. And so the stunts were really scary. And there was 3 great comedians, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, and you probably heard of Charlie Chaplin. They came out in the middle teens, but in the 20s they really thrived, and they made funny films, silent films, with a lot of really scary stunts that they mostly performed themselves, and yes, they got hurt a lot. One time, Buster Keaton was jumping from one building to another. He missed the jump. He broke his leg. He kept going. This stuff happened all the time. They were incredible pioneers in stunt work and trying to make it funny. Trying to make your stunt look funny is not easy. People were killed. Stuntmen and stuntwomen were killed. And believe it or not, women were directing movies in this era too. There were some very powerful women directors. They've kind of been lost in history because males kind of took over everything later. Say in the 30s and 40s and 50s, all up until now, women are directing quite a bit now, but still not as much as the men's do. And they're still not given films that they consider that a man can direct. Like, it's starting to change. We'll talk about this later, but it's starting to change because they used to give a woman something to direct. It was always about something to do only with the females would understand. I just saw this movie last night, and a woman directed it. It's an action film. I don't know what it was even called. Hold on. The Lost. It's a brand new movie. Charlize Theron action thing based on an animated book. It's on Netflix. The Lost Group or Last Group or something like that. It wasn't bad. She's great in it. A female is the lead, but a woman directed that. So women are getting a lot inroads, and so are people of color. It's about time. Anyway, we'll talk about that all later as we get going. I'm going to be yakking about this till the very last day, which is next Wednesday, by the way. And so this is our last full week of school. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to sign another essay. It's your last one. It'll be on some film that you're going to have to watch and write about. You'll have one more discussion. I'll probably start that today. Why does cinema matter? I use the word cinema because it's smarter than saying movies. And it's a French word, and the French created a lot of cinematic language because so much of our culture of cinema movies was originated in France, folks. It was. And so you'll see terms like cinema verte and film noir, and that's all French words. And we still use them to this day. Cinema verte uh, essentially it means life in front of the camera. So documentaries are usually, a lot of them are referred to as cinema verte. Film noir means black film. Um, it's the themes are dark. And actually, a lot of the films are very darkly lit because they were low budget. But it made the French came up with this term about noir, and it's one of my favorite genres of all time. Detective fiction, detective noir, the 40s, 50s. They still do it a little bit noir. I would say, if you've seen, it came out a couple of years ago. Sin City was definitely noir. Um, you could kind of say Pulp Fiction has got noir aspects to it. It does, even though it's in color. Um, Similar things. There's a usually noir involves a flawed hero, but he is the hero. But he's flawed, meaning he's usually an alcoholic. He's kind of a loser by society's standards, but he's not as bad as the bad guy. There's usually a beautiful woman he's in love with who he can't have, and she uses her sex to get him to do things. She's called a femme fatale, which is a French word for the fatal female. And those are all noir kind of cliches. And people are still using it. Absolutely. And so the French invented a lot of the terminology that we still use to this day. Okay. So what else? I'm grading the last discussions. Okay, here's the thing. You have one more essay. It's going to be due next week. Everything's going to be due next week. Get everything into me you can, let's say by Monday, so you can have 2 days of not having anything due. That means your journals, upload them, type them. Don't hand me a journal. Somebody photocopied their journal, or photoed it on their phones and sent it to me. Not in this class, another class, and it was handwritten. And I go, come on, man, we're not in high school. I needed to type it and upload it as a Word doc, and I'll post that all on assignments. And if you have any questions, I know you do, about the journal, you should have an entry for every week we've been in the class, say 6, 7 entries. Each entry should be a paragraph long or so. What you did, what you read, what I talked about in the lectures, what you did as a paper, what you learned, because it is a reflection. I want you to reflect on the class, not just tell me, we did this, I said that, I read this. That's not reflection. And if I don't see a reflection, you will get some points taken off. So a sentence or two about how you felt about the reading or the film you watched or the documentary or my lecture. You can be critical, folks. I'm not judging what your comments are. I'm just trying to see if you paid attention, if you got anything at all out of this class. This is how I find out that you did or not. And it helps me to know, so for the next time I could get better, more specific. This class is usually taught, I was supposed to teach it on site, and so it never happened. So it went online rather fast, and so we all were scrambling to make it work online. I'm not saying I'm frustrated as well as you were about being online on everything, because usually we watch movies in class, or we watch documentaries in class, and you could talk about them. We could talk about them face to face. That didn't happen. I am still trying to do a Zoom meeting the last week here. It's scheduled for 12:30 tomorrow. I hope you join me. At least I'll be able to see some people, see what your faces look like and your names. And it's essentially ask me any question you have. Hopefully I can answer it. And any concerns you have. I'm not going to require you be there. Some people are already telling me they can't be there. That's your loss. We're going to miss you because they have a job or they have to be with their kids or whatever. But it's a Zoom conference at 12:30, and I'll post all that information you need on announcements. So I'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. What else? That's about it. I don't want to overwhelm you with these things because the more information I put out there, it gets cluttered and confused. Look at your announcements. I'm going to make some announcements today. Look at your discussion. I'm going to start a discussion why cinema matters. Here's what you could talk about in the discussion. What's your personal experience with movies? Good, bad, indifference. Do you like them? Do you go to them? What you've been experiencing in your life with movies? How about your life-going history of movies? And then look at someone else's comments and comment about theirs. Do you like movies? Do you hate movies? You know, when people are in my film class, I always say, who here likes movies? Everybody's hands go up. Then I go, well, who here loves movies? About half their hands go up. Who here doesn't care? Another half go up. So people have a different relationship with movies. Another question I ask, pardon me, is why do you go to movies? Okay, and I always say, do you go to movies to be entertained? Most of the class raises their hand. Do you go to movies to escape, reality, to go watch another reality? Half the class raises their hand. Do you go to movies to kill time? A lot of people raise their hand over that. And that's a crying shame because movies are so much more than a time killer. They're so deeper in that. Hopefully we'll get into some of the deeper movies that are life-altering films. I can't do too much on foreign movies, which guys like Fellini, Bergman, Akira Kurosawa, I'm going to do as much as I can on them. They are life-altering experiences if you follow their films. Yes, they're subtitles, you have to read them, but they're on a human level that surpass a lot of what Hollywood puts out. Films are being made all over the world now. All it takes now to make a film, it's right here in the palm of your hand, that. They made a film about 3 years ago called Tangerine. Take a look at it. It's online. It's free. I think it's free. Made on a cell phone. Steven Soderbergh, who you may know him, he did the Ocean's 11, 12, 13, all that stuff. He's made 2 films now on his cell phone. Well, I mean, he's got millions of dollars behind him. He's not out there like this with his cell phone. He's got a ton of equipment, 100 people working for him, but they shot it all on an iPhone because the technology is that advanced now. And that's pretty cool. Anyway, there's lots to do this week. You've got lots to do. I'll assign you next. Your other assignment is due today. I can't remember what it was. Writers. And it takes me a week to grade all this stuff, so you're being pretty good with your patience. Anyway, I hope you guys are trying to stay cool because it's hot for the next 10 days. And what else? And you're doing something interesting with your lives, and you're wearing your face mask and washing your hands and staying safe, and keep learning because knowledge is power, period. See you in the rebound.